Hello everyone, just making this video to show you how to study gross anatomy from your lab manual. I'm going to be using page 51, the heart gross anatomy, as an example for how to study any gross anatomical structures from your lab manual using the resources that you have remotely. Um, First of all, you want to open up your lab manual to the appropriate page to find all the structures that you're responsible for finding. Then you want to go to the APR website. That would be your first go-to thing, and see if you can find it there. Because a lot of the, this is the gold standard now for remote studying for lab material. Okay. So first thing on my list, and go ahead and follow along with me in your lab mail if you want. I'm just going to study it myself, and you can learn from how I'm studying it, how you should be studying it. Okay. First of all, we're in the CV and circulatory system section. So I want to go to that section from this drop-down menu, go to that appropriate module. Let's go to the heart. Here we go. Let's heart for a second. Just open it up. any view of it is fine. Just get it on there. So first we're going to want to find the pericardial sac. Looks like the pericardial sac is not, it's like outside of this image. So we're not seeing this image, so we're not going to be able to see it here. For this one, I would suggest, yeah, you could go in your list and look for the P, pericardial sac. Surprise, surprise, we can't find it. And I can just tell right away in this view you won't be able to find it. But if you can't find something through the drop-down menu, you can also search for it, pericardial sac, pericardial cavity. Let's just go pericardial. And now when you get to this image, you can go to the different layers and just go show tags. These little circles are really helpful. The pericardial sac. Not really seeing it too well, but we know some components of it. The sac, it's the pericardial cavity. But this isn't good enough. Let's find something a little bit better. Fibrous pericardium. So if you're unsure, like you can't find the pericardial sac, I think at this point as a student, I would want to go to my book because that exact wordage is not there for you, and you want it to match what's in your lab manual. So here we go. I know this is part of the pericardial sac. Now it's going to form where the cavity of where the heart is. The pericardial cavity. It's like the structure of it. And one of the components is the fibrous pericardium. So forms fibrous sac. Pericardial sac forms fibrous sac. So now we're starting to get into it, figure out what it is. There you go. Forms fibrous sac enclosing heart. That's a good function. I would write that down right in my lab manual, right next to fibrous pericardium. I can get a different view of it, looks like, or not. Parietal pericardium. So let's go to the drop-down menu and see if we can see it. Parietal layer of serous pericardium. So you should know from lecture that parietal pericardium is a serous membrane. I think at this point it's safe to say. So here we're seeing it right here. This is a little misleading, I would say. Like, you want to understand what you're looking at because, yeah, you'll have a lot of images from APR in your lab exam, but they could also have images, cartoon images. They could have an image outside of the website that what I'm saying is you have to understand what it is and not just have some sort of visual memory of it. So let's read the description. Thin serous membrane fused to inner surface of fibrous pericardium. Outer limit of pericardial cavity. Now that's a little better. So we know what a cavity is. It's an empty space. So it's the outer limit of it. So it's the lining of that pericardial cavity. Continuous with visceral layer of serous pericardium. So that's just from lecture. You remember that water balloon slide, a fist going through a water balloon. So the visceral and parietal layers of any serous membrane that's lining a cavity are always going to be continuous, because that's how the organs go into the cavity as it pertains to the serous membrane. So it like punches through, and then the serous membrane wraps around it. Pericardial cavity created by narrow space between parietal and visceral layers of serous pericardium. So what would I use for a function here? Forms outer limit of parietal cavity. I think that's pretty good. But also, I'm not really happy with this view. I don't think you would be either. So I can tell that these are some pulmonary veins, some pulmonary arteries. So I want to get a little bit of context of what exactly is going on here. Pulmonary veins. So I don't see the heart. You know, if we're seeing the openings for the pulmonary veins here, the lumens, like the heart is gone. So we're just seeing the inside of that fibrous pericardium, like the deep layer. That deep layer to it is the parietal pericardium. And to see another view of it, let's see, can we go like, oh, okay. Go to a different layer. Fibrous pericardium, visceral layer pericardium, that makes sense. And we're seeing this parietal layer. You can just click the pin. Okay, I think we're getting down to it. We're trying to figure out what it is. You're going to have to, if you're still confused at this point, you know, plug it in here. Let's see, parietal pericardium. You know, look in your book. Try to understand what it is. Like, don't just move on. You know, understand what it is. Once you understand what it is, however, then, you know, please move on. Don't stay stuck on one thing. Okay, now we're starting to get the gist of it. And I see a cavity here. That must be the parietal cavity. This one here. Okay, visceral layer. I can see that. Pericardial cavity. This must be that pericardial sac, just from reading the description before on the fibrous pericardium. Okay, so I think we got the gist of it. Okay, heart wall. No function to say there. I'm going to the next thing on the lab manual, by the way. So that's the wall of the heart. It says epicardium, visceral pericardium. Well, we already figured out what that was. That's that serous membrane right over the heart. Myocardium. Okay, what is myocardium? Well, I'm just going to type it in. Myocardium, here we go, of left ventricle. It's a muscle layer, thicker in left ventricle, okay, this is in both ventricles, between endocardium and epicardium. So epicardium was the visceral pericardium, and the endocardium, I don't know what that is yet completely, so I'll skip that. Inner surface has trabeculae carneae and papillary muscles. Okay, I haven't studied that yet. Let's see. Function, contraction forces blood out of ventricle. So it's a muscle, forces blood out of ventricle. Pretty good function. But it's muscle, and it contracts, and it's in the ventricles. Got it. So cardiac muscle, because it's in the heart. All right, now the next one is endocardium. They talked about that. I didn't quite understand what that was. So let's see what it says. Doesn't have anything for endocardium. So here you would want to go into your lab manual, or sorry, not your lab manual, your book. And if you go into your book, you actually will be able to find endocardium by looking in your index. And what it will tell you is that it lines all the chambers of the heart, and it's endothelium and some connective tissue. And that's all this lining of the heart here. So it lines all the chambers in the heart, even lines the tricuspid and bicuspid valves. Yeah, and let's see if we can actually, let's just double check that we can't find it. Looks like we can. Yeah. Okay. But you would have to look in your book, and it is in there. External features, the apex. So let's go interior, let's go to the first layer. You could type this in, you can see it, but it did have it on this list here. Apex of the heart, right there at the bottom, the pointy or inferior end of the heart. Check. I mean, guess we could go click on it and see what it says. So for this layer, let's open up the tags. Let's click the little pin. Surface projection at the fifth intercostal space in mid-clavicular line. Okay, that's not too good. Blunt tip of left ventricle. Okay, I think we're all set with that. Coronary sulcus. So let's go back to the heart. I need to like reset this. Coronary sulcus. Nice. Okay. And if you're wondering what a sulcus is and those kind of words, remember on page 29 we have the description for what a sulcus is, and it's just a groove. So here we're seeing like a groove. It's highlighting a groove. Surface groove surrounding heart. So it goes around the heart, marks junction between atria and ventricles. Got it. So groove that goes around the heart that separates the atria and the ventricles. Got it. Intraventricular sulcus. Let's go to I. Now I know this one's on here. I saw it earlier. So let's just look around here. We're looking for another groove. I see like a groove thing here. Interventricular sulcus. Oh, I just missed it totally up here. So anterior and posterior. So we need to find two of them. There's a groove in the anterior surface of the heart. Extends from coronary sulcus. Contains, okay, here's a function. Contains anterior interventricular artery and great cardiac vein. So contains anterior interventricular vessels. I think that's good enough. We don't have to learn those veins. It's not on our list in our lab manual. You know, why be that detailed? So there's a posterior one. Let's go to P. Looks like it doesn't have that. But if you went into your lab, your book, you know, it would be there. It is there, and it's the same thing. It just holds the vessels, the intraventricular vessels on the posterior side. Contains intraventricular vessels on posterior side of the heart in the intraventricular sulcus. Okay, atria, right and left. Let's go to A. Right or oh, we want the atria. Well, atria, I think at this point, you just know atria is the chamber of the heart, right? I mean, you have 4 chambers to your heart, 2 atria on the top, 2 ventricles. I think everyone's got that down. You can look in your book if you want. So we want to find some auricles, and so right and left auricles. Here's a left auricle. Here's the right auricle. Small conical pouch-like extension of right atrium. Function doesn't say a function. You'd have to go to your book for that one. But it's just going to allow for the chamber to expand if there's an increased flow of blood going to the right atrium. You're just going to be able to handle that pressure coming to the atrium, and you know, the atrium's not that strong, so it has to withstand that pressure by able to expand a little bit to reduce that pressure on all the walls of the atrium. And that's the same thing with the left auricle. The right auricle is a little bit bigger, we'll say, a little bit larger. So, and then we just keep going down, and I think at this point I'm just going to check how long this video is. About 14 minutes right now. I'm not going to do all the studying for you, but you can see how I can continue down this list using the same strategy. Writing my functions right next to everything, you know, about 5 words is good. Making sure I find everything. If I can't find something, I'm going to my book. Yeah. Now, I will have another video on how to study, on here, on how to study histology. Actually, I just remembered something.